I haven't slept properly in almost a week. Every night, somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning, the light in my basement turns on by itself. That's the whole thing. That's the thing I can't explain. I own this house. I've lived here for 3 years. I know every sound it makes, every draft, every quirk. And I'm telling you, that light does not turn on by itself. Except it does. Every night. Without fail. I've replaced the bulb. I checked the wiring. I watched hours of forum threads about old electrical systems and pull chain fixtures. I convinced myself, over and over, that there was a rational explanation. But then I found the footprint. And then I found what was in the corner behind the couch. And now I'm sitting in a hotel room 2 miles from my house with the deadbolt locked, and I'm trying to figure out how to say this in a way that doesn't make me sound unhinged. I'm not unhinged. I just didn't know someone was living in my basement. It started on a Tuesday, about 3 weeks ago. I'd worked from home, made dinner, watched something I don't even remember. Normal night. I went to bed around 11. I woke up at 2:47 in the morning for no particular reason. Just opened my eyes. Lay there in the dark staring at the ceiling, doing that thing where you debate whether it's worth picking up your phone. That's when I noticed the light under my door. My bedroom is at the end of a short hallway. Past the hallway is the living room, and off the living room there's a door to the basement. One bare bulb down there, center of the ceiling, on a pull chain. That's the whole setup. Old house, old wiring, nothing fancy. The light was on. My first thought was that I'd left it on myself. I go down there occasionally, for tools, for boxes, whatever. I must have forgotten to pull the chain. I got up, walked through the living room, reached around the door frame, grabbed the chain, pulled it. Dark. I went back to bed, asleep in maybe 5 minutes. I didn't think about it again until the next night. Night 2, 3:12 in the morning. Light on. This time I was slightly annoyed at myself. Did I go down there after dinner? I genuinely couldn't remember. I have a habit of doing things on autopilot at night, locking the back door, turning off the kitchen light, and not really registering that I've done them. I assumed I'd been down there for something and forgotten. Turned it off. Went back to bed. Googled it briefly in the morning. Turns out pull chain fixtures in old houses can trigger on their own. Loose connection in the socket, a slight imbalance in the chain, vibrations from the house settling. It's a known thing. Physics, not ghosts. I felt fine after reading that. Made a note to replace the fixture when I got a chance. Night 3, 2:58 a.m. Light on. Night 4, 3:21 a.m. Light on. By night 5, I stopped getting up to turn it off. I'd wake up, register the faint glow under my door, roll over, go back to sleep. It had become background noise, like a heater clicking or pipe settling. Something to deal with eventually, but not urgent. I was so sure it was the wiring. That's what I keep coming back to now. How sure I was. And then I noticed the smell. I don't know how to describe it without it sounding like I'm embellishing. It wasn't strong. It wasn't the kind of smell that hits you when you open a door. It was more like if you stood at the top of the basement stairs and breathed in slowly. There was something there that hadn't been there before. Wet earth. The smell of soil that's been recently disturbed. Cold, mineral, organic. The smell of something dug up after rain. I caught it one Thursday morning and thought, the basement has gotten damp. Old houses do that. Moisture gets in. Not unusual. But it didn't go away. Over the following days, it was there every time I opened that door. The same smell, maybe slightly stronger, maybe not. Hard to tell when you're trying to rationalize something. That Sunday, I went down for the first time in about 2 weeks. I needed a box of old cables. I pulled the chain, came down the stairs, and stopped. Something was different. Not chaotic. Nothing thrown around. But my basement has a specific layout I know well. Boxes stacked along the left wall, old furniture pushed to the back, a metal shelving unit next to the water heater. I know it the way you know any space you've used for years. One of the cardboard boxes along the wall had been moved. 2 feet, maybe. There's a watermark on the concrete in a rough keyhole shape, and that box has always sat just beside it. Now there was a clear gap between them. I stood there looking at it for a while. Then I grabbed the cables and came back upstairs. I stood in my kitchen for a long time after that. Coffee going cold. just standing there trying to figure out what I was feeling, because it wasn't quite right to call it fear. It was more like a low-frequency warning, the kind your body sends when something is off and your brain hasn't caught up yet. Monday night, I made sure the basement door was properly closed before I went to bed. Pressed the handle down, heard the latch click, let it go. Closed. Tuesday morning, I walked into the living room and it was open. About 4 inches. Not wide open. Just that specific gap you get when someone passes through a door and doesn't pull it fully shut behind them. I stood in the living room in my socks and stared at that gap and didn't move for maybe 30 seconds. Then I walked over, looked down into the dark stairwell. Nothing. No sound. I closed it. I spent the rest of Tuesday telling myself it was the latch. Old house, worn hardware, uneven floor. The door probably didn't sit right in the frame. These things happen. Tuesday night, I closed it again. Pressed it harder this time. Made sure. Wednesday morning. Open. Same 4 inches. Same angle. Same as if someone had just walked through it. That's when I saw the footprint. The hardwood in my living room is dark, almost walnut. I almost missed it entirely. But the morning light was coming through the window at a low angle, and it caught the texture of something on the floor just in front of the basement door. A smear of dried mud. A partial footprint, just the front half, the ball of the foot and the toes, pointing away from the basement, toward the rest of the house. Not coming from the front door, not from the back, coming from the direction of the stairs. I sat down on the floor right there, cross-legged, just sat down and looked at it. I took a photo. I've looked at it probably 200 times since then, trying to convince myself it's a shadow or a stain or something the light made weird. But it isn't. It's a partial footprint of a bare foot, and it dried there overnight while I was asleep 10 feet away. Someone had come up from the basement, walked across my living room floor, and gone back down, or hadn't gone back down at all. I didn't sleep for the next 2 nights. I sat on the couch with my back against the armrest, all the lights on, TV on low, positioned so I could see both the front door and the basement door at the same time. Both nights, nothing. No light, no sounds, no movement. I started to feel genuinely embarrassed, like I'd talked myself into a panic over a drafty door and a shadow on the floor. I was tired and I'd been alone too much, and I'd let my brain turn a coincidence into something sinister. On the 3rd night, I went to bed. 3:08 a.m. I woke up. The light was on. I lay still and I listened. Really listened. A house at 3 in the morning has a particular kind of quiet, layered. The refrigerator hum, the tick of the pipes, the faint ambient noise from outside. You know what empty silence sounds like in a space you've lived in for years. This wasn't empty. Underneath everything, almost below the threshold of hearing, there was a sound. Slow, irregular, not footsteps. More like weight shifting. The specific creak of a floorboard under something stationary, something breathing. The kind of sound a person makes when they're standing very still in the dark and trying not to be heard. It stopped. A few seconds of nothing. Then it started again. I did not move. I lay flat in my bed and stared at the ceiling, and I thought, there is someone standing at the bottom of my basement stairs right now. And then I heard the pull chain. Once. Clean. Slow. Deliberate. The kind of pull you do when you know exactly where the chain is without having to reach for it. The light under my door went out. I stayed in my room until sunrise. Sat up against the headboard with every light on, listening. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. When enough gray light came through the window that I felt like a person again, I got up and went downstairs. The basement door was open. For inches. I went down. The smell was worse. That wet earth smell with something underneath it now. Something warm and lived in that I don't want to think about too precisely. In the far back corner, behind an old couch I've been meaning to get rid of for 2 years, I found it. A section of the concrete floor where the dust had been completely displaced, flattened, and pushed aside in a shape large enough to be a person lying down. A rough outline. Not clean, but deliberate. Like a nest. Next to it, a water bottle I didn't recognize. A dented can with the label mostly torn off. Peaches, I think. A folded piece of paper. I picked up the paper. It was one of my electric bills. From my kitchen counter. Dated 2 weeks ago, folded twice, carried downstairs and kept. I don't know why he took it. To know my name. To know the address. To feel like this place was his in some way. I don't know. I've thought about it too many times. I kept looking. That's the part one wish.